Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about carrying the Polymer 80 G-43 as an everyday carry gun. I've been carrying this for well over a month. I want to share my experiences with you guys, give you some ideas, some feedback. Now about a year ago I did a video on carrying, or actually I think I just mentioned the idea of carrying a Polymer 80 that you build yourself. And this was a year ago when I kind of first started building these things. And I had said that I don't recommend it. The two reasons I said was reliability. You know, the gun that I build is going to be different from the gun that you build. I mean, I'm in a position where I can build the gun. I can fire 500 rounds in a day if I need to. I can fire several thousand over a week to test the gun out. So I'm in a position to be able to do this. You may not be in a position to be able to test the gun to that extent. So that was the first reason I said, and that kind of still stands, okay? Unless you're in the position to really test the gun and test it on the different weather conditions and all that, that would be a concern. The second reason that I said that maybe you should consider not carrying a Polymer 80 is for the additional legal difficulties. Okay, so in this state it's perfectly legal for me to carry a gun that I build myself, right? But here's the thing. If I was ever to get into a self-defense type of situation and some prosecutor decided to come after me, right? So now my defense attorney has to put more time and effort to proving to a jury, let's say, that me carrying a home-built gun is perfectly legal and fine. So even though I am in the legal right to do so, my lawyer would have to spend more time defending that, and basically, he would charge up more hours, so it would end up costing me more for my legal defense. Okay, now I do have a prepaid legal service, right? So I stuck with that opinion for a couple of months. Then I started thinking about it a little bit more as I got more comfortable with the Polymer 80 guns and guns that I have built. I considered the legal aspect of it, and I say, hey, I get a prepaid legal service, where they would be, basically they'd have to cover those extra hours anyway. There's no reason why I shouldn't do it. Okay, so it took me a little while to get comfortable with the idea, but eventually I got there and I am comfortable with the idea, and I do carry Polymer 80 guns. Okay, because I've been able to get through the first part. The first part was reliability. I can shoot the gun often enough and test it under different conditions to feel comfortable that the gun's reliable. So that was the first thing I had. First hurdle I had to get over. The second hurdle was considering the legal expense aspect of it, and I have a way of dealing with that. So those are two things that you would have to also consider for yourself if you wanted to carry a Polymer 80 gun that you built yourself. Okay, so moving beyond that, let's talk about specifically this G-43 that I built and how I feel about it. First of all, I'm really happy with this gun. But before we talk about that, let's talk about my ideal carry gun, okay? My ideal carry gun, the one I enjoyed carrying the most, was this Ruger LCP. It was a 380. I carried this for quite some time, and I loved carrying this gun just because it was so light. With the holster and fully loaded, the thing weighs under a pound. Okay, so it weighs about 14 ounces, okay? So this is really light. I was really happy carrying this gun. The reason why I stopped carrying this gun is because of these horrible sights. Basically, they're these tiny little sights that I cannot see. Even after I put white paint on them, I still can't see these sights. And that's in the daytime. In the daytime I can kind of see them, but if it's low light or getting dust, there's no way I can see these sights. And at some point, I basically said, it's like, shooting is a seeing thing. All right, that's after reliability, the seeing aspect is probably the second most important thing. The gun's got to work, and you have to be able to aim the gun, right? So I can't do that with this gun. So that's why I stopped carrying this gun, although in all other respects I thought it was ideal. Now there was a secondary reason why I kind of stopped carrying this. I do live in an area where I got bears here visiting me every day. These are not aggressive bears, but all the same, if I did run into an aggressive bear, I definitely thought that 9mm would be a little bit more effective than the 380. So that was kind of like a secondary concern, but really, really minimal. The main issue was the seeing thing. I cannot see the sights on this thing. especially in low light conditions. I can't change the sights on this, so that's the reason why I stopped carrying this, okay? But because of the size and weight, this is my ideal carry gun, okay? So from there, I went to this Shield 9, okay, which is a really great gun, very reliable. I've put plenty of rounds through this. I've also heard other people talking about having. I haven't shot like, I think I've only shot like less than 2,000 rounds on this gun, but I've heard other people shoot 15,000 rounds on this gun. This gun is really reliable. You know, I mean, it's built to a really high standard. But this gun is obviously bigger, heavier. So I went from a gun that weighed 14 ounces to a gun that weighs 1 pound, 13 ounces. Okay, so basically it's a whole pound heavier almost. Okay, so I carried this for a while. Now, part of the reasons why I also switched to this gun, because the whole business with the riots started in 2020, and I said, you know what, let me get a gun that has a little bit more capacity. Although with this gun, I didn't have that much of a problem because I would keep extra magazines, you know, planted in places like my car, my office, or, you know, here and there, you know, wherever I was likely to be. Especially in my car, I kept extra magazines. But then I started doing the same thing with this gun, right? So I was carrying extra magazines. The gun was, you know, pretty comfortable to carry. It was a little bit heavier. When I went from that gun, because I went from carrying this gun, where I didn't feel like I was carrying a gun, right? When I carry this gun, it's like I don't feel like I have a gun on me at all. With this gun, I feel like I have a gun on me. And what I did with the Shield is I changed the sights. I put the night sights on here, so that took care of my issue of being able to see at night. It was a lot better. But then I started, you know, getting into pistol optics, right? And I saw that, like with the Polymer 80 G17s and G19s that I built, that I can shoot a lot better with a gun that has optics on it in all conditions, daytime, nighttime, dusk. So after several, I think it was something like 8 or 9 months I was carrying the Shield 9, I built and tested and finally started carrying this Polymer 80 G26, okay, and I did have to go through a long troubleshooting process because you know, basically I had to figure out how to get this, because I did have some jamming issues initially with this gun. The way I got this gun to work was with a slightly lighter recoil spring. So I put a, instead of a 16-pound recoil spring, I put a 14-pound recoil spring in there. And also, with the, you know, because with 9mm, I would shoot this with 124 grain bullets. With 124 grain bullets, this gun was very reliable. With 115 grain bullets, it would jam. Okay, so main issue probably is you've got a short barrel over here. Because remember, this has the, you know, all the internals, right? The upper parts, the lower parts. It's the same as the G17 and the G19. So now you've got those same parts, right? It's got the same magazine, same size of the slide, except that it's a little bit shorter. The difference here is they've just made the slide and the barrel shorter, and obviously they made the grip shorter too. So now you've got parts that are designed to be working in a larger gun being used in a smaller gun with a lighter frame, with a lighter slide. And plus I have the optic on it, which added extra weight to the slide. And I think that's the reason why it would not work with the 115 grain bullets, but with the 124 grain bullets, it worked reliably. I carried this for several months. Now obviously this is a much thicker gun. So when I went from the Shield 9 to the G26, okay, and you can pretty much compare this to just a standard, like even the factory Glock G26. It's going to be the same size, right? So if you get an MOS, it's going to have the optic. So size-wise, weight-wise, it's going to be exactly the same. So as I went from the Shield 9 to the Glock 26, this was a little bit fatter, a little bit heavier. Let's weigh this out. You know, again, these are fully loaded with the holster. We are at 1 pound 13 ounces. Actually, I think it's about the same in weight. 1 pound. That's 1 pound 11 ounces on the Shield, 1 pound 12 ounces. So it's 1 ounce heavier on the G26. Now obviously that's not a super accurate scale, but it kind of gives us a good perspective. So these guns are about the same weight, but the G26 is a little bit wider. I could sit in the car with it, although I could definitely feel that extra little width, okay, because that's really the test. When you sit down in the car, with the car seat kind of wraps around you, I could definitely see a difference when I went from this gun to this gun. You know, with this gun being just a tiny bit less comfortable, you know, when you sit in the car, okay? But you know, as the riots around the country started dying down a little bit, I'm like, you know what? These are like, you know, I'm carrying these heavy guns here. I really liked it a lot better when I was carrying this this little 380. And then I said, you know what? I think a G43 would be a big improvement, because this is obviously a lot lighter, a lot smaller. Let's see what we are here with weight. So now we are at 1 pound 7 ounces. Okay, so loaded with the magazine, 1 pound 7 ounces. So I've shaved off a couple of ounces there. I've been carrying this around, I think, for more than a month, closer to 2 months, I think. I'm really happy with the gun. I've fired lots of rounds with this gun. This gun is very reliable. I built another one which is not as reliable, and I think the problem, I think I kind of have it working better now. The other one, I think the problem was with the lower parts kit on that needed to be changed out, which I did, and I'm still going through a testing process with that. But this gun over here, first one I built, this gun's been working very reliable. Very happy with it. And you know, a lot more comfortable carrying this gun. I would prefer to be carrying this Ruger LCP, but again, I got a seeing problem with this gun. This gun with the optic on it, I've got the Holosun 507K on it. Now I'm going to say this: the thing that I missed the most, right, when I went from the G-26 to the G-43, and it's actually not even the size. On this G-26, I had upgraded this to the 507 ACSS, right? So it had like that big circle. If you guys aren't familiar with it, it has like a 250 MOA circle that kind of, if you pull the gun, you're shooting one-handed, right? You know, if you're offline, you have a circle to help guide you to the center. So this helps you get on target a lot easier. Because this gun is smaller, it can't take that size optic. It takes the slightly smaller 507K, which does not have the ACSS reticle. So if I do this one-handed, you know, a lot of times I have to go to my iron sights in order to find, my my circle. I use this with the 32 MOA circle. So I think that's the thing that I missed the most when I went from the G26 to the G43, the optic. I basically consider this an optic downgrade, because they don't offer this size optic in with the ACSS. I mean, at the moment, it's really hard to even find the ACSS and this size optic. But like I said, shooting is a seeing thing. The seeing part is the next most important thing after reliability. Okay. So that's the thing I missed the most when going from the G26 to the G43. The fact that this optic does not have an ACSS option. But the fact that it's so small, much smaller, lighter, I am happier carrying this gun. In the ideal world, hopefully at some point, Ruger or some other company that makes a gun of the same size will make this gun to take an optic, and then I will buy that gun and carry that gun. Now people will say, well, why don't you just have this milled out? The problem with milling these things out is that when I bought this slide over here, right, it had the little posts, right, the little Bosch studs that go up and insert into the optic, so that it will hold zero. If you have your slide milled out, I mean, all you do is cut it down. They do not put little posts in there. They can't do it because they're just cutting. They're not adding stuff. They're just taking away stuff. So my experience with the very first Polymer 80 that I built that did not have those little Bosch studs was that after a couple hundred rounds, basically the optic would start shaking loose, right? The screws would start, even if you put Loctite on it and stuff like that, the screws would start loosening up. So that was the first optic that I bought, which I ended up, not the first optic, the first slide that I bought for Polymer 80, and I ended up selling that off, the slide part, because I found that it just, not having those little Bosch studs prevented the optic from staying where it was supposed to stay and hold zero. So now that's a criteria for buying any, slide or for getting any gun that's going to have it's going to take an optic. It has to have the studs that insert into the optic so that it will hold zero. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of share all that information with you. This holster is from Nightfalls. I looked around. I had a hard time finding. Initially, I had a hard time finding a holster, so I went into one of the Polymer 80 groups, and people recommended Nightfalls. Really happy with their holster. They use a standard design that just works really well. So they didn't invent this holster design, but they did a good job of copying it. Works good. As far as the sights here, on this one, I do have the glow in the dark sights over here. I used the standard because initially I bought these. What was the company I bought? Let me go find the name of the company I bought these sights from. All right, night fishing. I got night fishing sights, and these are the Costa ones, which are basically like a medium height. Because if you get like the regular standard ones, you get like an extreme low co-witness. If you get the high ones, then it just blocks too much of your window. So I got the medium ones from night fishing, right? And what happened with that is the rear sight was good. The front sight was too high. So what I ended up was putting the standard one in there, and that gave me basically that gave me the zero I was looking for. So what happens is with your slide, sometimes when you put this, sometimes you have to kind of mix and match different sights to get a proper zero. So I was shooting low with the Costa sights that came with this, but when I put the standard low one on here, that gave me a good zero. On the second one that I built, I didn't bother with that. I just got the regular low sights because they were $60 versus $120, and I find that works just fine. I mean, they're still low enough that you can just see them a little bit, and also the optic has like a little bit of a cutout there. So obviously with my carry gun, I'm going to keep this the way it is, but on any future builds, I'm just going to get the standard low, the standard low sights, that come with that will go on a G-43. So let's strap this on, take a couple of shots with it. So like I said, I'm very happy with this G-43. I think this is the gun I'm going to be carrying for quite some time. Now I'm going to say this thing though, and this thing's kind of important. Okay, this is obviously it's a Glock clone, but regardless of it, even if you buy a factory Glock 43, don't assume that the history of reliability of the Glock 17 and the Glock 19 is going to automatically transfer over to the Glock 43, because they completely, basically everything's kind of been resized. Okay, so as far as reliability of all these guns over here, I would say that the Shield 9 is probably the most reliable. Okay, and if my life really depended on it, I mean, I would go back to the Shield 9 and figure out, because I think that now if you search hard enough, you can find one that has a proper cut in it. If my life really did depend on it, I would probably go back to the Shield 9. I mean, I live in a very low crime area, very low risk area. It's not likely I would ever have to use my gun for anything other than scaring a bear off or something like that. So it's not that much of a concern. Most of the time, the reason why I carry a gun is when I'm training people, I can show them the proper way to carry a gun. I can show them, so I carry it more for discussion purposes than anything else. I mean, it's just my lifestyle. I'm just in a very low risk area. Okay. So yeah, let's put a couple rounds down range. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that if you, don't assume, and even if you have a Glock 40, a factory Glock 43, don't just automatically assume that the history of the Glock 17 and the Glock 19 will carry over to it. As a person that has actually built the gun, assembled the parts, seen the parts, and this gun has so-called OEM parts in it. I mean, these days you never know exactly what you're getting because there's just a lot of counterfeits out there. But supposedly I have OEM parts in it. Even with that said, even if you get even if you get a factory Glock G43, don't assume that the reliability history of the Glock 17 and 19 are going to carry over into it. By all means, absolutely. Whatever ammunition you're going to use, whatever ammunition you plan to carry, make sure you send a lot of rounds downrange to test the gun out. Okay, so let's fire a couple rounds with this. Excellent gun. So, give you guys a closer look at this. And I love these. I love these guns with the cutout, with the slides, with the cutouts. So just so you guys know, when I the slide on this is the True Precision slide, and it's got the Gray Ghost barrel on this one. The True Precision slide, the cut for it is RMSC, while the Holosun 507K optic is RMS. So the issue with that was that the slide has 4 posts. The optic only will accept 2 posts. So what I had to do with this is I had to, with a Dremel, I had to completely file down the posts in the back, and then I had to file down the posts in the front about 1/3 in order to get this optic to fit on it. I did a separate video on that. If you guys search it, you'll find it on my channel. And you know, like I said, I filed down the back completely. I only filed down the front 1/3, so there's still something there to insert into the optic. And you know, it's been holding zero great, no problems. I haven't seen the screws loosening up or anything. So I'm really happy with this gun. Very happy carrying it. Comfortable. Not as comfortable as this Ruger LCP, but way more comfortable than either my Shield 9 or my G-43 over here. So that's my G-43 carrying experience so far, 2 months in. If you guys have any comments, questions, put them in the comments section. If you're not a member of the channel, subscribe. Talk to you guys soon.